This is your season of transformation. God is leading you into new blessings. Ladies and gentlemen, there are moments in life when you can feel that something is shifting, even before you can see it. Moments when the air feels different, when your spirit feels restless, when your heart begins to whisper that where you are is no longer where you are meant to stay. You may not have the full picture yet. You may not know the exact path ahead, but deep inside you sense that change is not only coming, it has already begun. We often think transformation announces itself with noise and fireworks. We expect dramatic signs, instant results, and visible proof. But true transformation rarely begins on the outside. It starts quietly within the hidden chambers of the heart and mind. It begins when your desires grow bigger than your fears, when your faith starts to rise higher than your doubts, when your vision stretches beyond your current circumstances. Many of you have walked through seasons that tested your strength, seasons that stretched your patience, seasons that forced you to confront parts of yourself you didn't even know existed. There were nights you questioned your direction, days you wondered if your efforts were in vain, moments when you felt delayed, overlooked, or even forgotten. But what if I told you that none of it was wasted? What if every challenge was preparation? What if every closed door was not a rejection, but a redirection? You see, life moves in seasons. There are seasons of planting, seasons of waiting, and seasons of harvest. And the mistake many people make is judging their entire destiny based on one difficult chapter. They forget that winter does not last forever. They forget that pressure produces diamonds. They forget that before elevation comes preparation. Today, I stand before you with a powerful message. You are not stuck. You are being shaped. You are not delayed. You are being developed. You are not overlooked. You are being positioned. The very things that felt like setbacks were setting the stage for something greater. The confusion was clearing your vision. The struggle was strengthening your character. The waiting was expanding your capacity. There is a divine rhythm to your journey. Even when you cannot trace it, you can trust it. Even when you do not understand it, you can believe that something higher is at work. Transformation is not comfortable, but it is necessary. Growth does not always feel good, but it always leads to something better. So if you have been sensing that your life is shifting, if you have been feeling an internal nudge towards something new, if you know deep down that you cannot go back to who you used to be, then perhaps this is not coincidence. Perhaps this is your season, a season where old limitations fall away, a season where new blessings begin to unfold, a season where who you are becoming is greater than who you have been. And today we are going to talk about that season. Your season of transformation or transformation begins within. Transformation never begins with what you see, it begins with what you believe. Long before your circumstances change, your conversations change. Long before doors open, your mindset expands. Long before the world recognizes your elevation, something shifts quietly inside you. God does his deepest work internally. Many people pray for a new life, but resist becoming a new person. They ask for greater opportunities, but cling to old thinking. They desire bigger blessings, yet operate from smaller identities. But transformation is an inside job. Heaven does not pour new wine into old containers. The container must first be renewed. The life you experience externally is a reflection of the life you are cultivating internally. If fear dominates your thoughts, limitation will shape your reality. If doubt governs your expectations, hesitation will mark your steps. But when faith begins to rise within you, when you start seeing yourself as chosen, capable, guided, your outer world begins to rearrange itself in response. This is why inner transformation is so powerful. It changes how you interpret everything. The same challenge that once discouraged you now strengthens you. The same delay that once frustrated you now teaches you patience. The same opposition that once intimidated you now confirms that you are moving forward. When God prepares you for new blessings, he upgrades your perception first. You begin to see yourself differently. You stop defining yourself by past failures. You stop replaying old disappointments. You stop shrinking to fit environments that no longer align with your growth. Instead, you start thinking in alignment with who you are becoming. And that shift, though invisible, is monumental because identity shapes action and action shapes destiny. If you still see yourself as unworthy, you will unconsciously sabotage opportunities. If you still see yourself as powerless, you will hesitate when boldness is required. But when you begin to see yourself as divinely guided, protected, and favored, you move differently. You speak differently. You expect differently. Expectation is the doorway to manifestation. What you expect consistently, you begin to experience. When your inner dialogue changes from "why does this always happen to me" to "something good is unfolding for me," your entire emotional state shifts. You move from survival to anticipation, from fear to faith, from reaction to intention. Transformation within also means releasing internal clutter. Resentment must go, self doubt must go, comparison must go. You cannot carry bitterness into a blessed season. You cannot hold on to grudges and expect peace. You cannot constantly compare your journey to others and expect clarity. Inner transformation requires cleansing. It requires honesty. It requires courage. It requires you to confront the beliefs that have limited you. Sometimes the greatest obstacle is not outside opposition, it is internal agreement with limitation. Perhaps somewhere along the way you accepted the belief that you are not enough, not talented enough, not attractive enough, not smart enough, not spiritual enough. And those silent agreements quietly shaped your life. But in this season, those agreements are breaking. You are beginning to realize that you are not defined by your past. You are not confined by your environment. You are not restricted by someone else's opinion. The moment you withdraw your agreement, T, with limitation, its power over you dissolves. This is the awakening of inner transformation. It feels like clarity. It feels like confidence rising without external validation. It feels like peace that does not depend on circumstances. You may not yet see the full manifestation of your prayers, but you feel different, stronger, calmer, more assured. And that feeling is evidence that something is happening beneath the surface. Just as roots grow underground before the tree becomes visible, your inner growth is preparing for visible expansion. Do not underestimate quiet growth. Do not dismiss subtle changes in mindset. When you respond to criticism with composure instead of anger, that is transformation. When you choose discipline over distraction, that is transformation. When you forgive instead of retaliate, that is transformation. Small internal shifts create massive external outcomes. Many people wait for a dramatic breakthrough, but overlook daily decisions. They underestimate the power of a renewed thought. Yet one renewed belief can change a lifetime. One decision to trust instead of fear can redirect your entire path. God works from the inside out because lasting change cannot be forced from the outside in. If circumstances change without inner renewal, old patterns will recreate old problems. But when you change internally, you carry a new standard into every environment. You stop accepting less. You stop entertaining negativity. You stop doubting your direction. You begin to walk as someone who knows they are being led. Inner transformation also increases discernment. You sense what aligns and what does not. You recognize when something is beneath your calling. You no longer chase what drains you. Instead, you are drawn toward what strengthens you. This is maturity. This is elevation. And sometimes this inner shift will feel lonely. Because when you grow internally, not everyone grows with you. Conversations may feel different. Priorities may shift. Relationships may change. But do not fear that separation. It is not loss, it is alignment. As your consciousness expands, your environment must adjust. The beautiful truth is this: once transformation begins within, it cannot be stopped. You cannot unknow what you now know. You cannot shrink back into a smaller identity once you have tasted expansion. You cannot comfortably return to mediocrity after glimpsing purpose. Something in you has awakened, and that awakening is proof that this is your season. You may not have everything figured out yet. You may still be navigating uncertainty, but internally you are not the same person you were a year ago. Your thinking has matured. Your faith has strengthened. Your standards have risen. That is where transformation starts, not in applause, not in public recognition, not in instant results. It begins in the quiet decision to believe differently, to think differently, to see yourself differently. And when the inside changes, the outside must follow, because transformation always begins within. Seasons of breaking are seasons of becoming. There is a kind of pain that does not come to destroy you, it comes to define you. There is a kind of breaking that does not signal the end, it signals the beginning. And many people misunderstand this sacred process. They interpret discomfort as defeat. They mistake pressure for punishment. Anti. But in truth, the seasons that break you are often the seasons that build you into who you were meant to become. Breaking is not the opposite of blessing, it is often the doorway to it. Think of a seed. Before it ever becomes a tree, it must split open underground, in darkness, in isolation, under pressure. From the outside, nothing appears to be happening, but beneath the surface, everything is changing. The shell cracks, the old form dissolves, and what once seemed whole must break apart so something greater can emerge. In the same way, there are seasons in your life where the structure you once depended on begins to crumble. Plans fail, relationships shift, stability feels uncertain. You may feel exposed, vulnerable, even confused. But what if that breaking is not a collapse, but a construction? Because you cannot step into a new identity while clinging to an old one. Seasons of breaking strip away illusions. They reveal where you place your confidence. They expose the areas where you depended on people more than purpose, comfort more than calling, security more than faith. And though the exposure can sting, it is sacred. When God intends to elevate you, He first removes what cannot go with you. Sometimes that removal feels like loss. Sometimes it feels unfair. Sometimes it feels abrupt. But elevation requires lightness. You cannot carry unnecessary weight into higher levels. You cannot bring old fears into new opportunities. You cannot hold on to expired connections while expecting divine expansion. Breaking releases what blessing cannot coexist with. And here is the paradox: the very season that feels like it is undoing you is actually refining you. Prayers sure reveals strength you did not know you possessed. It teaches resilience. It forces clarity. It deepens faith. When everything comfortable is shaken, you discover what is unshakable within you. You discover your core, your conviction, your endurance. There are parts of you that would have remained dormant without the breaking. Compassion grows through suffering. Wisdom grows through mistakes. Courage grows through challenge. And spiritual depth grows through surrender. If everything had always gone smoothly, you would not know your own capacity. You would not know how strong you are. You would not know how deeply you can trust. The breaking season teaches you dependence on something higher. When familiar support systems shift, you are drawn inward. You begin listening more closely, praying more sincerely, reflecting more honestly. And in that quiet searching, your foundation changes. You stop building on temporary things and start anchoring yourself in eternal truths. This is becoming. Becoming is not glamorous, it is not loud, it is not always celebrated, but it is powerful, because becoming shapes character, and character sustains blessing. If you received everything you desired before being prepared internally, you might not be able to maintain it. Success without maturity can destroy. Influence without integrity can corrupt. Expansion without discipline can overwhelm. So the breaking season aligns your inner structure with your outer destiny. It slows you down long enough to strengthen you. And yes, it may feel lonely. Not everyone understands the season you are in. Not everyone can see the invisible work happening within you. Some may interpret your quietness as weakness. Some may interpret your withdrawal as failure, but they cannot see what is being rebuilt. Do not rush your reconstruction. There is purpose in the pause. There is growth in the gap. There is preparation in the pressure. Every tear, every setback, every unanswered question is shaping you into someone stronger, wiser, and more aligned. Breaking also humbles you in ways success cannot. It reminds you that you are not self-sufficient. It teaches gratitude for small mercies. It softens your heart toward others who struggle. It removes arrogance and replaces it with empathy. And humility is fertile ground for favor. When you have been broken and restored, you carry yourself differently. You no longer boast in temporary victories. You no longer panic at minor disruptions. You understand that storms pass. You understand that nothing lasts forever, not even difficulty. The breaking season also clarifies what truly matters. When distractions fall away, you see priorities clearly. You recognize which relationships are genuine. You recognize which dreams are worth pursuing. You recognize which habits must change. Pain has a way of sharpening vision. It eliminates superficial pursuits and highlights eternal value. This clarity is part of becoming. There are qualities in you now that did not exist before the breaking: patience, discernment, emotional intelligence, inner strength. These are not acquired in comfort, they are forged in challenge. And the beautiful truth is this: nothing you endured was wasted. Every disappointment refined your expectations. Every betrayal strengthened your boundaries. Every delay deepened your faith. Even mistakes taught lessons. That success never could. The breaking was not random, it was intentional shaping. You are not being reduced, you are being redefined. Gold must pass through fire to remove impurities. Muscles must experience resistance to grow stronger. Diamonds form under intense pressure. Nature itself demonstrates that greatness often emerges from crushing conditions. So, why would your life be any different? The very areas where you felt weakest may become the areas where you stand strongest. The very wounds that caused you pain may become sources of wisdom. The very season that humbled you may position you for your greatest rise. Do not despise the breaking. It is not proof that you are abandoned, it is proof that you are being molded. And molding requires flexibility. It requires trust. It requires surrender. You are becoming someone who can handle more, someone who can steward greater responsibility, someone who can carry greater influence without losing integrity. That kind of person is not formed overnight. That kind of person is shaped through seasons of breaking. And when the season shifts, when the harvest begins, when doors open, when restoration flows, you will stand differently, not arrogant, not careless, but grounded, grateful, prepared, because you will know that the breaking was never meant to destroy you. It was always meant to transform you into who you are becoming. Divine redirection is not rejection. One of the most misunderstood experiences in life is rejection. A door closes, an opportunity disappears, a relationship ends, a plan falls apart, and immediately the human mind asks, why wasn't I chosen? Why didn't it work? What is wrong with me? But what if the closed door was not a verdict on your worth? What if it was a divine adjustment to your direction? Divine redirection rarely feels comfortable. In fact, it often feels like disappointment. You invested time, energy, hope. You imagined how things would unfold. You saw the picture clearly, and then suddenly it dissolves. The invitation never comes. The contract falls through. The person walks away, and you stand there confused, wondering if you misheard God or misunderstood your path. But redirection is not rejection. Rejection says you are not enough. Redirection says this is not your final destination. There is a profound difference. Sometimes you are denied access not because you lack value, but because the space you are trying to enter cannot contain who you are becoming. Sometimes what you desire is smaller than what has been prepared for you, but if you received it, you might settle there. So the door closes, not to harm you, but to move you. Think of how often you look back on something you desperately wanted, only to later realize how limited it was. At the time, it felt like a dream, but in hindsight, you see it clearly. It would have confined you, it would have distracted you, it would have delayed you. What felt like loss was protection. Divine redirection operates from a higher vantage point. You see the present moment. God sees the entire journey. You see the opportunity in front of you. God sees where that opportunity leads 5 years from now. And if that path leads to stagnation, compromise, or distraction from your purpose, He intervenes. Intervention does not always feel gentle, but it is always intentional. When a door closes, your ego may interpret it as failure, but your spirit senses something deeper. There is a subtle knowing that says this is not the end. Even in disappointment, there is an underlying peace that cannot be explained. That peace is evidence that you are being guided. Redirection requires trust. You must trust that missing out is not the same as being left out. You must trust that delay is not denial. You must trust that a closed chapter is not the end of your story. Sometimes redirection comes through discomfort. You feel restless in a place that once felt secure. The job no longer excites you. The environment feels heavy. The connection feels misaligned. Nothing dramatic may have happened, but internally you know something has shifted. That internal discomfort is divine guidance. It is the gentle nudge saying, there is more for you. If you ignore it, you may remain stuck. But if you honor it, you step into growth. Divine redirection also protects your identity. Not every opportunity aligns with who you are becoming. Some spaces would require you to shrink, to compromise your values, to silence your authenticity. And if you stepped into them, you might gain temporary success but lose long term peace. So the door closes, and though it stings, it saves you. Many people spend years trying to reopen doors that were shut for their good. They replay conversations, they obsess over missed chances, they attempt to prove themselves worthy of something that was never meant for them. But what if your energy is not meant to go backward? What if the door closed because a better one is already being prepared? Redirection often clears space. When something leaves your life, it creates a gap, and gaps feel uncomfortable. They feel empty. But emptiness is not absence, it is opportunity. It is room for something new to enter. If your schedule remained full of misaligned commitments, how would you recognize divine appointments? If your heart remained attached to expired relationships, how would you welcome deeper connections? The clearing is part of the blessing. You cannot step into new territory while clinging to old maps. And sometimes redirection humbles you in a necessary way. It reminds you that you are not in ultimate control. It teaches surrender. It deepens your dependence on guidance rather than ego. It strengthens your discernment so that next time you recognize alignment more quickly. There is also timing involved. A no today may simply mean not yet. You may not be fully prepared. The opportunity may need to mature. The circumstances may need to align. And rather than rushing ahead prematurely, you are being positioned patiently. Imagine arriving at a destination before the infrastructure is ready. You would feel frustrated. But if you trust the process, you arrive at the right place at the right time. Divine timing never rushes and never delays unnecessarily. Redirection also sharpens your resilience. When one path closes, you are forced to explore others. Creativity awakens. Hidden talents surface. New ideas emerge. You discover possibilities you would never have considered if the original plan had succeeded. Failure often introduces you to innovation. And here is the deeper truth. Nothing that is truly meant for you can permanently miss you. If it aligns with your purpose, your growth, and your destiny, it will find its way back at the right time and in the right form. What passes you by was either misaligned or premature. So instead of asking, why was I rejected? Ask, where am I being redirected? Shift the narrative. Instead of interpreting closure as loss, see it as guidance. Instead of viewing delay as defeat, see it as development. Instead of labeling yourself overlooked, recognize that you are being positioned. You are not behind, you are being guided. When you embrace this mindset, peace replaces panic. You stop forcing what does not flow. You stop chasing what resists. You begin to move with intention rather than desperate iron. And that shift changes everything. Because when you trust redirection, you walk differently. You release the need to prove yourself. You stop competing for spaces that do not honor you. You recognize that your path is unique and cannot be compared. You begin to understand that every closed door narrowed your focus, strengthened your faith, and refined your direction. Divine redirection is not rejection, it is refinement, it is protection, it is positioning. And one day, when you arrive at a place that feels aligned, expansive, and divinely arranged, you will look back at every closed door, not with regret, but with gratitude. Faith activates new blessings. Faith is not passive, it is not wishful thinking, it is not blind optimism disconnected from reality. Faith is alignment, faith is agreement, faith is the conscious decision to trust what God has spoken within you more than what circumstances are showing around you. New blessings are not activated by fear, they are not drawn in by doubt, they respond to belief. There is something powerful about expectation. When you expect disappointment, you interpret every delay as defeat. When you expect rejection, you interpret every silence as confirmation of your insecurity. But when you expect blessing, you begin to see possibility where others see problems. You begin to move with confidence even before evidence appears. Faith shifts perception. Two people can stand in the same storm, yet one sees destruction while the other sees cleansing. The difference is not the storm, the difference is belief. Faith reframes difficulty. It says, "This is working for me, not against me." It declares that even challenges are part of divine orchestration, and that declaration is not denial, it is power. Because what you consistently believe, you begin to embody, and what you embody, you attract. Faith is not just something you feel, it is something you live. It shapes your posture, it influences your decisions, it determines your persistence. When you truly believe that God is leading you into new blessings, you stop settling for what contradicts that promise. You stop chasing crumbs when you know a table is being prepared. Faith also requires imagination. Before something manifests externally, it must be envisioned internally. Every breakthrough begins as a thought. Every new chapter begins as an idea. And if you cannot see it within, you will struggle to recognize it when it appears. Imagination is not fantasy, it is spiritual foresight. When you imagine yourself healed, whole, successful, favored, you begin to align your behavior with that image. You speak differently, you act differently, you choose differently, and slowly your outer world begins reflecting your inner vision. This is how faith activates blessing. Many people pray for opportunity but speak negativity daily. They ask for increase but constantly rehearse lack. They desire elevation but entertain limiting beliefs. There is a disconnect between what they want and what they expect. Faith closes that gap. It says, "I may not see it yet, but I believe it is unfolding." It says, "I will not allow temporary circumstances to dictate my permanent identity." It says, "If God promised growth, then growth is already in motion." Faith creates consistency. When you believe something good is coming, you prepare for it. You sharpen why our skills. You refine your character. You organize your life. You position yourself. You don't wait passively, you prepare actively. Preparation is proof of belief. If you truly believe that a new opportunity is on the horizon, you will not remain stagnant. If you truly believe that new relationships are coming, you will heal old wounds. If you truly believe that abundance is possible, you will cultivate discipline and gratitude. Faith is movement. It is walking as if the door is already opening. It is speaking as if the answer is already released. It is thanking God before the manifestation appears. And gratitude accelerates blessing. When you are grateful in advance, you shift from desperation to trust. Desperation repels, trust attracts. When you are anxious, you grip tightly. When you are faithful, you rest confidently. Rest is an expression of faith. It does not mean inaction. It means peace while acting. It means effort without anxiety. It means striving without fear. You do your part, but you release the outcome. You plant the seed, but you trust the growth. Faith also silences comparison. When you trust your path, you do not envy someone else's pace. You do not question your worth because someone else appears ahead. You understand that blessings are customized. Timelines are unique. What is meant for you will not bypass you. Comparison weakens faith because it shifts focus outward. Faith strengthens when focus shifts upward. There will be moments when evidence contradicts expectation, when doors remain closed longer than anticipated, when progress feels slow. That is when faith matures. It is easy to believe when results are visible. It is powerful to believe when they are not. That is the kind of faith that activates miracles, because miracles are not responses to comfort, they are responses to conviction. When you refuse to let go of belief, even in uncertainty, something shifts in the unseen. Doors begin to align, conversations begin to change, opportunities begin to circulate. What once seemed impossible begins to feel inevitable. Faith turns if into when. Instead of saying, "If this works out," you begin saying, "When this unfolds." Instead of asking, "What if it fails?" you declare, "It is already being arranged." Language matters. Words carry energy. What you repeatedly speak shapes what you repeatedly experience. When your words align with faith, your life begins aligning with blessing. And here's a deeper truth. Faith not only activates external blessing, it transforms internal atmosphere. When you live by faith, fear loses authority, anxiety loses dominance, doubt loses control. You become steady, grounded, centered. You stop reacting emotionally to every minor fluctuation. You understand that seasons change. Just because something looks barren does not mean it will remain that way. Just because growth is invisible does not mean it is absent. Roots grow silently before fruit appears publicly. Faith sustains you in silent seasons, and those silent seasons are often the most sacred, because in silence, trust deepens, character strengthens, vision clarifies, and when the blessing finally manifests, you are not overwhelmed, you are ready. Faith is not about forcing outcomes, it is about aligning with divine flow. It is about trusting that what is meant for you is already making its way toward you. It is about understanding that you are not striving alone, you are being guided. When you walk in faith, you radiate confidence, not arrogance, but assurance. You no longer beg for validation, you no longer chase approval. You know that your steps are ordered, and that knowing changes everything because new blessings are drawn to those who expect them. Opportunities gravitate toward those prepared for them. Favor flows toward those aligned with it. Faith activates what fear postpones. So hold your belief steady. Guard your mindset carefully. Speak life consistently. Prepare daily, gently. Trust deeply. Because when faith becomes your foundation, blessing becomes your atmosphere. And what once felt distant begins to feel present. What once felt uncertain begins to feel assured. What once felt impossible begins to unfold naturally. Faith is the key that unlocks the next chapter. You must release the old to receive the new. There is a powerful truth about growth that many people resist. You cannot carry yesterday into tomorrow and expect transformation. Every new season demands space, and space can only be created through release. God will not force new blessings into hands that are still tightly gripping what has expired. Releasing the old is not always dramatic. Sometimes it is quiet. It is the decision to stop revisiting a memory that keeps you stuck. It is choosing not to reopen a door that God already closed. It is finally admitting that a chapter has ended, even if you once prayed it would last forever. Holding on feels safe, familiar, predictable. But familiarity is not the same as purpose. There are relationships you have outgrown, habits that no longer serve you, mindsets that once protected you but now restrict you. And the reason this is your season of transformation is because you can feel the tension between where you are and where you are being called. That tension is an invitation to release. You cannot step into greater peace while clinging to old chaos. You cannot receive divine clarity while entertaining confusion. You cannot embrace abundance while rehearsing scarcity. The old must be surrendered for the new to be sustained. Letting go does not mean you failed. It means you have matured. Sometimes the hardest things to release are not bad, they are simply no longer aligned. Not every ending is toxic. Some endings are just complete, and wisdom recognizes completion without bitterness. When a season is finished, forcing it to continue only delays your growth. Release also requires forgiveness. You cannot carry resentment into your next level. Bitterness is heavy. It clouds judgment. It drains energy. It distorts perception. If you enter a new chapter with unresolved anger, you risk recreating old patterns. Forgiveness is not approval of what happened. It is freedom from being controlled by it. When you forgive, you detach from emotional bondage. You say, I will not allow my future to be dictated by my past. That decision alone shifts your trajectory. There are also internal versions of yourself that must be released. The version that doubted every opportunity, the version that accepted less than you deserved, the version that stayed silent out of fear. You are not obligated to remain who you were during survival seasons. That version of you was necessary then. But this version of you requires courage, confidence, and clarity. Growth feels uncomfortable because identity is changing. You may feel like you no longer fit certain spaces. Conversations may feel foreign. Old routines may feel draining. That discomfort is not loss, it is evidence that you are evolving. But evolution demands detachment. You cannot become who you are meant to be while trying to preserve who you used to be. Releasing the old also means releasing control. Many people struggle with surrender because they equate it with weakness. But surrender is not weakness, it is trust. It is acknowledging that your understanding is limited, but divine wisdom is not. Control says, I must figure everything out. Surrender says, I trust the one who already has. When you release the need to control outcomes, anxiety decreases. You stop forcing timelines. You stop manipulating circumstances. You stop striving in exhaustion. Instead, you act with intention and trust with peace. And peace attracts clarity. Another aspect of release is letting go of comparison. Comparison ties you to someone else's timeline. It convinces you that you are behind. It tempts you to measure your progress by another person's highlight reel. But your journey is custom designed. If you hold on to comparison, you will overlook your own growth. Out. Release the need to compete. Release the urge to measure. Release the illusion that someone else's success diminishes yours. Your path is unfolding uniquely. Sometimes releasing the old means grieving it, and that is okay. Even good things can end, even meaningful seasons can close. Grief does not mean you lack faith, it means you valued what was. But do not let grief turn into attachment. Honor what was. Appreciate what it taught you, and then let it go. Because what lies ahead requires openness. Imagine trying to pour fresh water into a cup already filled with stale liquid. It will overflow, mix, and lose purity. But empty the cup, and it can be filled completely. Your heart is that cup. Empty it of regret, empty it of fear, empty it of outdated expectations. Trust that what is coming is worth the space you are creating. Release also strengthens discernment. When you detach from old patterns, you begin recognizing new alignment. You sense what feels peaceful and what feels forced. You understand the difference between comfort and calling. You no longer chase what drains you. Instead, you are drawn toward what expands you. This is maturity. It is no longer about proving yourself. It is about protecting your peace. It is no longer about clinging to what once worked. It is about aligning with what now fits. And sometimes releasing the old requires bold action. It may mean ending a cycle, changing an environment, saying no where you once said yes, choosing discipline over distraction. These decisions are not easy, but they are necessary because new blessings cannot thrive in old soil. You are being prepared for expansion. And expansion requires elasticity. It requires flexibility. It requires courage to step into unfamiliar territory. Do not fear the unknown. The unknown often carries your answered prayers. What you release makes room for what you requested. If you ask for growth, old comfort must go. If you ask for elevation, old limitations must fall away. If you ask for deeper faith, old dependencies must be removed. This is not loss, it is alignment. And when you finally let go, when you stop gripping what has expired, you will feel it. A lightness, a freedom, a renewed sense of possibility. You will realize that what you feared losing was actually limiting you. Release is not the end of blessing, it is the beginning of overflow. Because when your hands are open instead of clenched, they are ready to receive. And what is coming requires open hands,